Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I have been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station, WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. And this is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I want to thank Kyle Frano for his wonderful show right before I got on. It's so much fun to listen. Thanks, Kyle. Have a great day. And it's nice to be here with you. For those of you who are brand new to the show, I'll tell you a little bit about the show in a moment. And for those of you that tune in regularly, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate everybody that likes to listen regularly. And I hope that what you're learning and what you're hearing and what you're thinking about as a result of this show makes you feel special, gives you that chance to generate inner peace for you and for those you love and care about, for those you work with, for those you come into contact with in your communities. This show is all about taking the wheel and controlling how you feel. And hopefully you get some insights and some ideas from this show each time I'm on. The show is on the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, or New York time, as some of you like to say. Anyway, it's great to be here with you, and I've got a few things I'd like to talk to you about today, but I also always want to give everybody a chance who's been waiting to talk to me to call in, so I'll give you the number right away. It's 203-336-9756, 203-336-9756. So if you've been waiting to call, give me a call and we'll talk right away. For those of you new to the show, the reason people call in is because they call in when there's any reasons that they might be experiencing some difficulties and some challenging situations in their lives that they're not sure how to deal with. And again, for regular listeners, you know I've often made the comment that when smart people are stuck, when really good critical thinkers are stuck, when really excellent problem solvers can't seem to solve a problem, it's almost always because they're feeling something emotional inside themselves, some conflicting emotions possibly, some uncertainty, some self-doubt, or they're dealing with another person or several other people or groups of people, and they're worried about the emotions of these other people, and they're not really quite sure how to proceed. Thank you for calling. You're on the air. This is Chuck Wolf. Can I have your first name?
This is Robert Berry calling for Rob.
Oh, for Rod Richardson? Or you're calling the broadcast station?
I'm calling for an interview with Rob Silver.
Sorry, he's not here, and this is Chuck Wolf, and I'm on the air right now, so I can't take your call.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but this is the right number, huh?
Yeah, he's not here. I don't know when he's going to be in. Sorry, I can't help you.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was my first call, but it wasn't for me. It's an interesting way for the day to start, huh? So if you want to call me, again, the number is 203-336-9756, 203-336-9756. And I'm Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. And as I was saying, when smart people are stuck, when they're uncertain how to proceed, and when they're really struggling with challenging situations, it's often because something emotional is happening. And in that emotion that they experience, they're wondering how to handle it. And one way to deal with situations like that is simply to just begin to think about the emotion roadmap. The emotion roadmap is this template, this methodology, this process, a lot of ways to describe it, that simply puts into perspective a way of handling emotional situations that really is helpful in almost any circumstance. And so the way it works is that I ask you a series of questions. I ask you first to just tell me a little bit about your situation so I know something about it. And because the show's on the air for 55 minutes, I can only take what you might call an executive summary, if you will, just kind of a shorthand view of what's going on for you. And then I ask you how you're feeling about what's happening. And I ask you if there's anyone else that's key to what you're trying to get done, how he or she or they are feeling. And after I ask about what you are currently feeling and what anyone else who's key is currently feeling, I then ask you the question, what would be ideal to feel? If you could make anything happen, if you could make magic happen, what would you really like to feel? And what would you like to feel is really an important question because it basically gets you to the place where you start to think about, well, if I'm feeling anxious as an example and I want to feel confident, what would I like to feel? I mean, if I know I want to feel confident, what would it make me feel confident? What can I do to make me feel confident? How can I make that happen? And then I start to explore with you, well, if what you're feeling is anxious and what you want to feel is confident, the next question is, how might you change from anxious to confident? And I walk you through how to do that. Now, it sounds like that shouldn't be that hard, but while these are simple questions, it's often profound, the impact they have when you think about how to answer them. So you go from what you are feeling to what would be ideal to feel, to how do I get from what I'm feeling to what's ideal for me and for others. And then you think about several different strategies that might help you to get from, again, anxious to confident. And then you ask yourself, well, are any of these strategies something I'm really able to do? And if you can answer yes to that question, the second question that's really important to answer yes to is, are you willing? Because sometimes we're able, but not willing. And there's a variety of reasons for that. And sometimes we're willing, but we're just not able. We may not have the time. We may not have the competency. We may not have money, if that's what it takes. Whatever it might take, we may not have the ability to get it done. Or we might not have the attitudinal willingness to do what it takes. So then we don't have a real strategy. But if you can answer, yes, I'm willing, and yes, I'm able, then you have a strategy that helps you deal with the emotional side of things. And sometimes everybody that's listening, magic happens. If you're a regular listener, you've heard some of the magic before. I got an interesting question this morning from somebody I'm doing some work with today. And James, if you're listening, it's a shout out to you. But one of the things that I was asked was, what are some of my favorite calls? And as I thought, geez, there's a bunch of them, a lot of them. One of them was with a fellow named Michael who called. And Michael's question was, my business, and he had a variety of reasons why, but his business was failing. He'd been at it for 20 years, very successfully most of those years, but something in the marketplace had changed. Some of the regulations from the government had changed, and his business wasn't going to make it, and he knew that. And he was feeling somewhat depressed and sad, of course, about losing his business. So when we have a sense of loss, we feel sadness. And then I asked him, well, do you have a family? And he does. He had a wife and some younger children at home, and he was struggling with, the fact that, how's he going to support them? And so as we talked and we began to think, look, that's how you're feeling, somewhat despondent and sad. You're experiencing a loss of something you've loved. It's normal. It's normal to grieve when you've lost something important to you. But then, what do you want to feel instead? Well, I want to feel confident that I can provide for my family, that I can maybe start a new business, or I can work someplace, somehow, some way I can bring an income in to take care of those I love. And then we began to explore with him, what do you have inside yourself that you've developed over the years, those abilities that have helped you to create a successful business for some 20 years, that you take with you. Even though this particular business is failing at the moment, what lessons have you learned that you can carry forward? Now, as we explored these ideas, I recognized with Michael that he didn't have the same energy levels he had when he started this business, of course, because he was older. You know, if he started when he was 22, he was 42 now. But how much smarter was he after 20 years in business? What mistakes could he avoid that he made when he was younger, starting out? How could he leverage all the talent and skill and knowledge that he'd gained over those years to go forward? How could he feel confident that no matter what comes, he was going to be capable of providing for those he loved? By the end of the phone call, he was just all wound up about how excited he was about trying again with a new start. It's interesting how we experience loss. We go through this grieving experience. It was first associated with death by Kubler-Ross when she said, you know, you go through this denial and anger, and then after the anger and denial kind of pass, you begin to realize, you know, life goes on. You move on. Even without the loved one or without the loved thing that's out of your life now. And you start to experience this idea that, hey, there's a new adventure in front of me, and the exploration of what comes next begins to get somewhat interesting and then even exciting. And when you activate that new next experience, the next chapter you're going to write for your life, it becomes exhilarating potentially. And that's one of the phone calls I remembered that really stayed with me. Because I shared this one with a lot of you because I know many people who are listening have had the failure of a business in recent years. And so I hope that's meaningful to you. I hope that comes across as something that matters to you. But I've had people call in about loved ones, about relationships. I had somebody else that I'm coaching who was exploring how to improve her prioritization and her ability to handle a much larger, meaningful role that she was given based on her earlier successes. A really large number of successes at lower levels and given this ultimately much bigger challenge. And she was struggling and dealing with that. And, you know, she wanted to explore some of the things that I'd been telling her about when we were talking, when I was coaching her. And she said, you know, I'd love to listen to some of the other topics that you've talked about. And I said, and I gave her a bunch of different, you know, podcasts that I've saved over the years of some of the shows that I've done, and I thought she'd be listening to one on leadership that I did with a very good friend named John Caparello, who's one of the best leaders I've ever worked with in my life. It's really excellent about how to lead successfully, how to engage employees, how to inspire others, how to not even talk about them as employees but as team members, and why language matters, and how to build trust in an organization. That's what I thought she'd listen to. But after she explored a bunch of topics, she decided to listen to something about marriage relationships that I had done some time ago. And she thought it was so powerful because she's been so caught up in the workload that she's taken on as a result of this enormously responsible position she's been given, that she decided to explore her relationship with her husband because she felt like she was so overwhelmed with work that she was starting to lose something there, something really important, and that's what she focused on. And so as we talked about that, I said, well, you know what? I think it's fine that you focused on that, because you focused on what you thought was most important. And if family is most important, then sure, you should focus on that. And the skills you're going to learn with me, from me, are going to be about life skills. That what you learn in your marriage is going to be transferable to what you use in the workplace, and what you learn about the workplace are going to be transferable to what you do with your family and in your communities. Because the emotion roadmap is a life skill. It's a tool for life that you can apply to work or at home. So if you've got challenges either in the workplace or at home, in your communities, with friends, with workers, with bosses, with employees, with team members, and you want to give me a call and see how this works. And the reason that I do this show is that everybody who calls in and has an interest in seeing how this works, everybody that has that interest, when you call me with something that you want some help with, and I can help you and demonstrate how the roadmap works, everybody listening benefits. Everybody listening has a chance to learn how to use this in their own lives. And just like I told you the story about Michael, I hope everybody that's a small business owner who's had the experience of a loss of a small business recently can listen to what I said to Michael and hopefully benefit. So if you got something you want to call about, give me a call at 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. I've had some really interesting callers the last few times I've been on the air. I just put one of the podcasts up the other day. It was a young woman living at home and the challenges that she faced trying to regain her independence. She'd struggled a bunch with numerous problems that she had trying to become independent, and now is living back at home and was challenged with being treated somewhat as a child, even though she was 27 years old, by her parents, and yet some of the behavior was very childlike. So how do you break away? How do you become an adult? How do you live as a grown-up when you're struggling with the transition? How do you develop emotional maturity? So we had a lovely talk about that. And then someone else who was very despondent about feeling as though he hadn't accomplished much, and he was towards the end of his life's journey, and he was hoping to somehow make a difference in a meaningful way. And so we explored that. A really, really interesting conversation. That's on SoundCloud if you want to listen to it. It's also on the Public Radio Exchange. If you go to the Emotion Roadmap on SoundCloud, or you go to the Public Radio Exchange, prx.org, and you find the Emotion Roadmap, you'll see these shows, and you can listen to them there. So again, the number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. I always come with a few topics to talk about in case I don't get callers right away. And I suppose there might be a whole bunch of people out at the beach today. It is one of those days where it's pretty steamy in Connecticut here. Comfortable in the studio, though. I've got to say that. 203-336-9756. Well, it's funny. I thought I was going to have a caller right away. Sometimes it takes a while for a call. After the first caller, then I usually get a bunch of calls. It's like somebody has to break the ice. And then I got that first call, but it wasn't for me. Life has a funny way of dealing with you sometimes. Here we go. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to?
It's Neal.
Hi, Neal.
Yeah, I've been struggling. I separated from my wife, and I have found that I'm not as strong as I thought I was. And I have the opportunity to, she would be willing to reunite, and I'm just not sure that I'm ready for that. So I'm going through a lot of depression about indecision and that I've had in the past. And strategies for trying to make decisions that are important. And having had, some mental health hospitalizations over the years as well.
Okay, so you've got this isn't a simple one, I don't think, Neal, right? But my guess is you've thought a lot about this. So how are you leaning right now? How are you feeling? Are you leaning towards getting back together, or you feel like it's really important to stay away?
Yeah, I'm really in a predicament about that because I've had this crisis before and have separated before and always come back. And then this last time I felt this kind of renewal in my life when I separated, but some of it involved what you call bipolar behaviors. I just was not true to myself. I did some, illegal things. And that was part and parcel of the separation. So I'm evaluating a whole bunch of things that I did in my life. And, I'm leaning towards I need family. And that's all I know. I don't know how I feel about being married. It's kind of it's just that tough place to be in. And I'm just trying to, whether I do believe in prayer somewhat, and I'm trying to, it's a decision because I'm 70 years old and I'm not as strong as I thought I was to be on my own in 900 miles away, in addition to most of my family.
Oh, so this is a physical separation by quite a distance,
Physical.
not?
Yeah, but at the moment I'm back in the house with her. So, but I'm just, I'm trying to get out of the deep depression which I was hospitalized for, and I'm in a program right now, so I'm going to take that day by day in an intensive outpatient hospital program. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you're getting some help already from professionals, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you in calling me, what you heard me say was, how are you feeling and how do you want to feel? And if you can make magic happen, how do you want to feel? I mean, is that the reason for the phone call, to see if magic happens here?
Yeah, I'm not been a person who, because I've gone through such horrible indecision about this in the past, that I almost feel like I have a block towards hearing what my feelings are. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain that, but I feel like I'm intellectually locked up or something.
Oh, well, so let me ask you this. Again, you're dealing with a lot of mental health professionals, so what have they told you about this subject? I don't want to repeat things that you've already heard. I want to kind of know what...
We really didn't talk about it yet because it's more of a structured curriculum program.
Okay.
The one counselor, which is I don't have insurance for, so it's kind of expensive, but he just said, well, don't see it as the marriage right now, just try to have the relationship. And so I've kind of taken that into consideration, and to just try and have a strong relationship with her, because we are sharing meals and living together at the moment.
So always in a case like this, there's more than you. In this particular instance, there's her. And what would you say if you were to give your best educated guess how she's feeling right now?
She would like to see us reconcile. She wants change because the marriage was not the greatest in terms of me being a sharer in the, I guess the drudgery of everyday life and stuff, the cleaning and the work around the house. So, so I think she would like to reconcile. I feel like I need to this time have some sense. I feel like it's almost like I'm crushing some independent spirit, which felt very happy for a few months being alone. And but some of it was based not on some realism. There was some grandiose thinking and just behaviors that were not normal that I kind of threw myself into. And I, some things I'm not proud of, and that I have a court case coming up for as well. So, I guess I'm just trying to sort out how to make a good choice this time around. And, just and from the heart that's going to stick this time, because we have had, struggles in our marriage since the beginning.
Now, let me ask you, was it Neal? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, Neal, do you love your wife?
I do. I do love my wife. I don't always love her. I don't know if I love her in the romantic sense, but I do love her.
And
I deeply respect her love, how much she's put into the marriage too. I deeply am grateful for that. So,
well, let me share something I think that might be useful for you to think about, and because I think you're going to probably be getting some help with your own emotions with the people you're seeing.
Yeah.
But I find that therapists don't always focus on what are you doing to make the other person in this relationship feel great.
Mm-hmm.
They focus more on you and
right.
getting your medications right and getting you, the bipolar under control and all that. I mean, those are reasonable goals for them, but they don't always focus on what you're doing with the other person in the situation. And
right.
I think if if I understand and I heard you accurately and I assessed this correctly, Neal, one of the problems is a lot of this is like all in your own head about you and about what's happening with you and how you need to live your life and how you weren't as strong as you wanted to be. And you kind of felt like it was a beautiful thing when you were independent because it was all not working for a while. And then you missed the family. You missed the dynamic of being in a relationship and having a family. And so now you're back. And when I said which way you're leaning, I didn't know you were living with the woman. So you're obviously leaning to at least to be there. And
yes, I had to come back up, and I was coming up to help move stuff out, and then, the situation with the depression just hit, so I ended up entering a program up here and being part of that. So
I love what the other person told you about, focus on the relationship, not about the marriage. I think if you can build on that, and maybe this might be helpful to you, because let me ask you how you want your wife to feel about you, and how you want her to feel with you, and how you want her to experience herself when she's with you. What kind of feelings do you want for her to have as a result of you being in that home?
Well, I guess I want her to know that I love her completely. That's the bottom line, that I'm not going to be judgmental or critical of her.
So you want her to feel loved. Let me turn that around to feelings. You want her to feel loved and supported. Does that work?
Yeah. She's changed the house completely in the time that I've gone.
Okay.
So she's found her own therapy and stuff. So, but she still loves me, and so I kind of. And I'm sort of saying you need to be realistic at this point in your life, that you would be better off with a supportive person in your life, such as herself, than to just be doing the free and bachelor kind of bipolar thing that you were doing down in Florida. And so.
Well, let me ask you this: you've been in and out of this relationship for a while, right?
Yeah.
When it's worked best, when it's been at its finest moments, do you have any recollection of what was happening that made it work when it was working?
Yeah, I guess just being kind, just having more kindness towards her. That would be the key. Less, I've always kind of kept the marriage separate. She has her interests and I have mine, and I kind of felt like I never really married. I just kind of, we had a family together, so that was married.
Right.
She's just a terrific person, and just, that's all. I just, maybe it's just got to be gratitude towards what a kind person she is towards me.
So let me give you something to build on that, okay? Let me give you a way to build on that. And by the way, I know there's somebody else calling. I just want you to know I'm here by myself.
Yeah,
so.
That's fine.
No. I don't want you to go. I want to finish because I think I can help you. So one of the things I think is if you can build on what you were told about focusing on the relationship, if you can build on what you said really seemed to work was when you were kind to her.
Yeah.
And if I can add to that, a focus on every day and what you consider the drudgery of every day. By the way, I think, people have affairs lots of times because it's all romantic and it's sex and it's lust. And there's not take the trash out, will you, honey? Get the dishes done. Come on. I don't want them piling up in the sink. What are we going to have for dinner tonight? I mean, all that is sort of the day-to-day stuff where I think if you embrace that, and you look and ask yourself every day when you get up in the morning, not how do I stop myself from being depressed, but how do I keep my wife feeling loved? How do I do? And take the focus off yourself and focus on your wife and be in the present moment. There was a book by Baba Ram Dass years ago called Be Here Now. And you might be old enough to remember it. But anyway, it was this.
I do remember.
Yeah, so it's about being really present.
Right.
And it's about being in the moment and loving the fact that you're with this woman that is this woman who loves you dearly, wants so much to have this kindness from you. doesn't want to be judged, just wants to be loved and supported. And you know what? I think, unless I'm wrong, I think you're able and it sounds like willing to do that.
I think I got to give it a shot because right now I don't feel. I basically what happened is I drove down there and I got, kind of stuck on the road. And of course, who's the person that I call. I don't really have a lot of support for people. When I was stuck on the road, and I called her, and she was still there for me. And God, it's pretty rare these days, I guess.
Well, I mean, if you can remember this, when you get up in the morning, Neal, just ask yourself, what am I going to do for my wife today? Or remind yourself that, whatever comes up today, I'm going to look at that as special moments. So who knows how much time we have on this, planet Earth, and,
right.
Whatever life we got left, make every day special as you can. I mean, I don't think you can maintain this at a high level every day, every moment, but work at it. And I think if you get out of your own head and trying to deal with all the things that have been a struggle for you forever, and you start
right.
thinking about, I'm not going to worry about me, because you know what, when you worry about her and you see the kindness and support coming from you and what it does for her, it's going to make you feel better anyway.
Sounds like a plan. I'm going to definitely take that to heart.
Well, I wish you the best with it, Neal, and thanks for the call.
All right. Thank you very much, Chuck. Take care.
Bye-bye. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
My name is Mark.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of a God incident. So I was driving to the beach, and I tuned in WPKN, and I had heard your show periodically over the years. And I said, this is a good time to pull over and see if I can share something with you. Now, I'm 67, and I think generally I'm in a pretty good space, personal development, and things going on in my life. And I met a woman a couple of years ago. Fire alarm.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I know what it is anyway.
Yeah. And we're engaged, and we share a house together, and things are good between us. And she has a son who lives with us also. And this is about the son, and he's 31. He's a sweet young man. And he was born premature, and then he had a stroke in those early days. And it impacted part of his brain. No fault of his own, but probably has approximately an 80 IQ. And the mom did everything she could and still does. And he's kind of normal. He works in a supermarket. He's got a driver's license, but intelligence is, I guess, relative. There's an upside, and I've struggled with trying to find the right word to describe him. I'm of the age when a lot of people were institutionalized, and the word retarded was bandied about, by young guys at the bus stop, and that's no longer the case.
Right.
Because our society wants everyone to live to the fullest ability as a human, to achieve their potential. And we certainly want this for my future stepson, who I come to love as stepson. So I've struggled with trying to find the right how to describe him. I definitely do not say the R word. And he's not specifically special needs. He's in the low end of the bell curve of what's considered average. And he's bored with his job, but they've been very good to him where he works. He's got health benefits. He can participate in a 401k. They like him there. They know his situation. They know myself and his biological mom. We stop in, so they know that we're not just absentee parents. So, would you recommend, or could you give us kind of a roadmap to like a job coach? Are there any kind of social organizations that can help him maybe plot out a career? He wants things that everybody wants. He wants to live independently. He wants a girlfriend. He'd love to get married. He's lacking in self-confidence. There are issues that, as a man, I haven't spent perhaps as much time in exploring with him, but I don't want to step on his oxygen hose either. So you can ask me anything you'd like.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. As far I'm developmentally challenged, I think, as my daughter's in this field, and I think that's what they say. But instead of the word retarded, I actually don't think the word retarded is a terrible word, but it got a terrible, reputation, I think. But anyway, I know what you mean. So I think there's organizations that specialize in this, and I'm sure you must know about those, right?
No, I don't really.
I think it's FARS. I think it is, but I'm not an expert. So I think there's there must have been along the way, and maybe you can explore this with his mom. In school, counselors that helped him find programs to help get him the job that he got, because I know that there's career coaches for this kind of work, but again, I'm no expert on trying to give you the recommendation for this.
Right.
So I think you got to go exploring. I wish I could be more helpful on that. I think it was called FARS, FARS, because we have a neighborhood. In our neighborhood, there was this wonderful young man that everybody in the neighborhood loves. He's just a really lovable kind of guy, and he's on that spectrum. He's on the lower IQ, and he's been living in a group home, and he's been independent in the sense that he goes to work every day, and he has a job, and he comes home to visit on holidays, and he goes around exploring the neighborhood, and he seems to be living a pretty full life. It's challenging. I know that in certain instances, in particular states, some states have a lot more funding and programming for people like this than perhaps Connecticut does. I know one of my wife's friends moved, I believe, to Delaware because that had a particularly good program for people in a category similar to your future stepson. So, right. I mean, You may want to start to look at what different states might have in the way of programming and whether or not that's worth considering. I don't know what's going to work best for you, but I think those are the kind of things I would explore. I would see if the school has a record, and I would go back because he's 31, so it's a long time since he's been in school. But if your wife has the history of how they got him this job, how did that happen? Was there some help through any kind of organization, and what kind of support is there out there now for folks like him?
Okay. All right.
That help?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You bet. And it's lovely that you wanted to stop and call, and I think as long as you're on the track, I'd make some time in the day to kind of follow through and figure out what you're going to do next on that. It's a great goal, Mark.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, folks, you've been listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. You're tuned to WPKN in Bridgeport, 89.5 FM. I'm Chuck Wolf, and this is the Independent Community Radio, broadcasting from the campus of the University of Bridgeport. By the way, we're moving to downtown Bridgeport soon, and that's going to be exciting for all of us. That move is going to probably happen around September. Serving Fairfield, New Haven, and Litchfield counties in Connecticut, and Suffolk County in New York's Long Island. We stream around the world at WPKN.org. You can hear us on TuneIn Radio or our app, which is WPKN Live. And via your smart speakers, just tell Siri or Alexa to play WPKN Radio. And that should work for you. So anyway, thanks for listening, everybody that's tuned in. We have about 20 more minutes or so. So if you've got something you'd like to chat with me about, and I want to thank Neal and Mark for calling in. The number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Well, I'm waiting for other callers. I do want to just say that this July 2021 is a significant time for people who have been advocates for recreational marijuana. This has been a law that has been approved in Connecticut. I'm sure most, if not all of you listening to WPKN know that that's happened in our state of Connecticut. But I would like to talk about it a bit because I know that there are people, some of friends of mine that are legislators in the state had some serious concerns about, is this going to lead to more usage among younger people? Now, I didn't share that concern to the degree that they did because obviously, to me anyway, and to many others, marijuana has been available for a very long time, for many, many years. And if people wanted to use it, they certainly can find ways to use it before it was legal anyplace. And now, of course, it's legal in New York and it's legal in Massachusetts. So you just simply have to cross the border, depending on where you live, and you can buy it there legally. But there's still, I guess, a tremendous black market for this. And so there's this big drive to make sure that we have somehow the funds that come from marijuana sales get used in a responsible manner and address social equity issues that have been out there forever. And those are typically applied to communities where people have been harmed the most by drug laws that seemingly treatment seemed to have been different in certain areas of our state or in our country than in other places. And with different populations, groups of demographics suggest that certain groups were targeted or at least didn't have the resources to prevent getting jail terms or records from using marijuana illegally in the past. So they want to try to do something to correct that. And one of the things that I've advocated, and now that this is legal, I would suggest if any of you have any contact with people that are on this board that are going to determine how the revenue stream is going to be used that comes in from marijuana, that I would encourage you to share this idea with members of that board, that you look to Sandy Hook in particular. All of you probably listening know about the Sandy Hook massacre a number of years ago, where a young man was took some guns and shot a whole bunch of young kids and teachers and people in a school setting, and it was a very horrible event. And the Sandy Hook Promise and the foundation that resulted from that horrific time and event has produced some wonderful programs to help kids in school to develop social and emotional abilities at higher levels than they would have otherwise. And the research that's been done, and I'm very familiar with a lot of research that's been done on emotional intelligence, has demonstrated that children who are higher in emotional intelligence scores tend to be children who are highly responsible, who are significantly better leaders, who are better students, who get better test scores, who are more inclusive of others, who are more tolerant and recognize the value in diversity and difference. And that's so much of what we all want for our children today, that wouldn't it be great, at least in my mind, if we could use some of the funding that comes from marijuana sales to help support Sandy Hook's programming, which they do for free. I mean, you have to pay for their cost, but there is no profit in it for them to come in and do social and emotional learning programs in schools, anywhere and everywhere. And wouldn't it be great if we helped them to do that in our Connecticut schools? Now, there's other programs, and I'm a big fan of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. They have what they call the Ruler Program. Regulate, understand, label, express, and recognize emotions. I guess it goes the other way. Recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate emotions. That's another really excellent program. More expensive, though. But any way that we could increase our children's social and emotional learning, not just for the kids, but for the teachers, the administrators, and parents. Think about the fact that if we use the money that way, less children will have interest in getting high. The more self-worth we generate in kids, the more self-confidence we create in children, the more we help children to see the value in being inclusive of everybody, no matter what the differences might be. Whether it's sexual orientation, skin color, religion, it doesn't matter. There is wonder in diversity. And can we increase our level of acceptance and inclusion through programming like this? Wouldn't that be a great use of the revenue stream from recreational sales now that it's legal. We have a year or so before this is all going to start happening, where those revenue streams are going to be materializing. And we have time to develop those ideas. So if you like those ideas, and either your legislator, your local state representative, or your local state senator, share those ideas if you like them. I believe that there are so many good people in our country with lots of good ideas who don't always, none of us are perfect. But if we act on the idea of trying to be the best possible versions of ourselves and helping others to be the best possible versions of themselves, there's so many of us that want that, but we aren't necessarily willing to do the work or able to do the work. And sometimes we're willing, but we don't know how. And sometimes we know how, but we're not willing. And I want to encourage all of you to step up and take some accountability for encouraging our elected officials to use that revenue stream to drive social and emotional learning. And look at the Sandy Hook Promise Foundation programs first, because they're nonprofit and they do a great job. I hear great things about the work that they've done. And also, again, look at the Ruler program from the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. My friend Mark Brackett runs that program. He's done an amazing job putting that together. And they're doing that. That program is happening all over the world. So I think if you look at those, and maybe you know of other choices and other programs that you also have heard have great reputations. So I'm not suggesting it has to be one program or another, but the idea of social and emotional learning that impacts kids and parents and teachers and administrators holistically, then there's a chance for something better to be happening in our schools and in our communities. So I encourage you to think about that. If you have a thought about that and you want to share it, give me a call, 203-336-9756, 203-336-9756. Again, if you want to call me about something going on in your life, something to do with your family, your workplace, your community, your religious organizations, your clubs, your sports teams, whatever it might be, give me a call, 203-336-9756. So while I'm waiting for your call, I do have something else that I'd like to share with you. Use this public forum, hopefully for good. There's another idea that's out there that I think is worth paying some attention to. I hope you feel this way too, although anytime I talk politics, I know that I'm running a risky gauntlet that some people, no matter what you say, if it's not exactly the way they think you're wrong and you're evil somehow. Well, hopefully you won't feel that way about what I'm about to say. But I think that there's a whole bunch of people that are neither extreme left or extreme right. And it doesn't mean that they're conservative or they're liberal. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that they're willing to listen, not to one view or another view, and not to one party or another party, but just willing to listen to what somebody believes is what's best for the country, what's best. And I don't mean it in terms of judgment of somebody's point of view on the left or somebody's point of view on the right as being wrong or right. I think sometimes the left makes a great deal of sense, but sometimes the right does too. And I just try to find what makes the most sense for everyone. And right now, there's a group in the Senate and in the House that are working collaboratively across party lines to try to create and pass an infrastructure bill. Some of you who pay attention to politics may have seen President Biden come out a couple of weeks ago and make the announcement that said, we have a deal. Now, we don't have a deal yet, but he and some Republicans and some Democrats had agreed on an infrastructure deal that the country sorely needs. And then there came some pushback from the Democratic side that said, yeah, but there's a whole bunch of other things we need too. And we'd like to get them all in that one bill, or we'd like to at least get both bills passed at the same time. And I think some of the things that the Democrats want in that other part of the package are great ideas and supportable, whether it's, long-term care for people, or it's more education support for preschools, or whatever it might be. I think there are other great ideas. But they aren't the same as repairing tunnels and bridges and airports and trains and buses and so forth. And I think all that makes some sense, as President Biden and those Democrats and Republicans said. So I hope that all of you who feel similarly to me will contact your representatives and your senators and put forward your support for let's take this win while we have the chance. And then let's fight for the other things we care about too. But let's not lose the battle on infrastructure because we want other things and we're not willing to go along with the things that we absolutely need that everyone can agree on. Now, I realize that I run the risk of alienating some people by saying this, but I just believe it's really important to get people together and do what we can where we can agree on what's in the best interest for all of us. And that's why I support this group called No Labels. I also support another group called Braver Angels, and I'm hoping that the groups work together soon in ways that will benefit this country. We're hoping to get we did have the chance to have a Republican and a Democrat talk about how citizens can bridge the congressional divide not too long ago. And it was a great experience having a Democrat from Virginia, Elaine Luria, and a Republican, Brian Fitzpatrick, on our show. He's from Pennsylvania. It was a Zoom affair, and we had over 1,000 people sign up for us. It was great. So I actively try to do what's right for the country, and I hope that you might want to do that as well. Again, if you want to call me, I got a few minutes left. It's 203-336-9756. One of the other things I'd like to share with you, while I'm waiting, is that we just celebrated Independence Day. And while our country is far from perfect, happy birthday to America. Happy birthday to America. I was just listening to Woody Guthrie's version of This Land Is Our Land. I spent like 15 minutes just listening to different versions of the song the other day. It was so much fun to listen. One of the best versions I thought was without old Guthrie and Willie Nelson and Neal Young and others, and Joan Baez and Judy Collins, I think, was on it. It was really a great version. So that's kind of a fun thing to do if you're still sort of celebrating right now. Anyway, you've been listening to Chuck Wolf, and this is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I will be back on the air next week. I want to thank Neal, and I want to thank Mark for calling in. And I hope when you listen to what I was able to say, in particular to Neal, that you're able to hear the steps that you take, which is to ask yourself, what are you feeling when you're stuck and when you're uncertain how to proceed? What are you feeling? And if anyone else is involved, what is he or she or they feeling? What would be ideal to feel? If you could make magic happen, what would really be ideal to feel? And think of the best possible feelings associated with what you want. If you could magically make other feelings appear, what would they be? And then how do you get from what you are feeling to what would be absolutely ideal to feel? For you and for anyone else that's key to what you're trying to do. And then what are you actually willing and able to do to make it all happen? What are you actually willing and able to do to make it all happen? So that's the Emotion Roadmap. As I've said, it's really powerful. It makes a world of difference in terms of how people can process their emotional experiences. I had a chance I was asked actually to write a chapter for the International Coaching Federation. It's a group that certifies people to become coaches, life coaches, executive coaches, leadership coaches, career coaches. And the chapter they asked me to write was sort of the definitive chapter, if you will, about how emotions impact coaching. And the chapter that I wrote I called Successful Coaches Influence Emotions, Thoughts, and Behaviors. And one of the things that I encourage you to think about is that how you're feeling, even though it may not be a strong feeling, because we're very aware when we're feeling strong feelings, but we're always feeling something. Just like we're always breathing but not thinking about breathing, we're always feeling something, we're just not thinking about it. But when you stop and realize what you're feeling, you have an idea how those feelings are impacting what you're thinking about and how you're actually behaving. What you're thinking about and how you're actually behaving. So successful coaches influence emotions, thoughts, and feelings. There's a metaphor that I've heard years ago about, sometimes getting to understand what's really driving somebody to do certain things. It's like peeling back an onion. And so on the outer edge of the onion is what you think of as behaviors. And as you take a few layers of the onion off, you see the thoughts behind the layers. And then further into the core of the onion are feelings. Feelings drive thoughts, drive behaviors. So I leave you with that as a way of thinking about closing out this week's show. Again, I appreciate Neal and Mark call, and Mark, I hope you get some help for what you were looking for. It's a great goal, and one of the things I didn't think to do is maybe, and I like to do this. This is a part of WPKN's community strip. You've been listening to WPKN, and one of the reasons it's called the community strip is because we are community. Maybe next week, if you have some ideas about how to help Mark's stepson, give us a call. Thanks, everybody. I'll be talking to you next week. Have a great week and enjoy this wonderful sunshine.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.